to the instructions very carefully. Don't just open the form and start filling it. If you have any doubts with instructions, make sure you tell me before you start filling the form. Enough time will be given. That's very important for me to understand the importance of this lecture. So the third one is, so I'm going to keep my video off for the next 5 minutes, camera off for the next 5 minutes. So at least for the next 5 minutes, I would request every single student to keep the microphone with camera on, just for the five minutes, because I wish this class would have happened in C1, but we all know it can't happen. But so just for me to have a good start, I would at least like to see your faces and reactions as the presentation goes forward. And so that's how it is. So I'll keep my camera off right now. You keep your camera on. And when I start keeping my camera on, then you can all shut down back to normal, whatever regular things that you do. It's your choice from there on. I hope you all can hear me clearly and good. So as I can say, shall we start with the presentation? Okay. Thank you for joining us with the camera on, whoever did it. Okay. So reminding you, first instruction is the next few minutes, all I request you to read the presentation, nothing else, and go along with the presentation. I'll stop talking now. 26 people have submitted so far and it's stuck there. Am I expecting more? People are still doing it? Let me know, or else I can go forward. If anybody on the audience are still typing in the form, let me know, or else we'll go forward. Can anybody tell me, did you get the results back?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just to inform everybody that the results has nothing in terms of right or wrong answer. It is just some number to understand for me, quickly understand for me how many people said yes, how many people said no. It is nothing that you have made a mistake or it is a wrong answer or something like that. And just for me to quickly know through numbers. So please ignore the numbers there entirely. But frankly speaking, from the entire data that I got from anybody whoever participated in this particular form, I'm really happy and I can see it is much better than the data that I got last year with your seniors at the same time of the situation actually. So anybody feels majority of the questions that were asked are important uh, or not important, and that should you should have an answer by now. Any question that any majority of the questions, not maybe one or two could be still possible that maybe it is not relevant to your particular project, but I am in hope that everybody believes that majority of the questions that were asked, except the last question, were important to you, were important to the progress to go forward. I hope, is it right? Can I hear a yes or no for that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So basically, the first thing that you should start is answer those questions. If it is still no, if it is still no in your board or your sketchbook or your computer screen, I think you should just make sure that it is yes immediately. And it is very valid questions. These are just simple things, and you already know it. Maybe I mean most of the answers. I personally believe it's in your head for sure, but it's just not written anywhere. So that is the first learning that I would suggest you to really believe in and go forward. So because majority of the time it happens that we actually have answers for our designs, high hopes for our designs and approach and everything, very clear about our approach. But because it is never written, the usual pressure, obviously, it's not like entirely we work every day sincerely. We work one day very seriously, another day not very seriously, and end of the day, before the reviews or before the examinations or whatever you call it, you currently come into this pure pressure and start working and finishing it off. And suddenly you come to your design jury, and what happens is you start explaining your design, and obviously you did everything that you thought of, but while explanation, you will be forgetting everything. Every single decision that you made is not written anywhere. And when you thought of design decision, you actually made a right call in terms of the problem that you identified. But since now there is no recorded data of that, you come to the jury and you say, okay, fine. This is my entry, this is my exit, this is the elevation. Thank you very much. So none of the design discussions actually don't happen. It is just you're basically selling a product. What at the end of the day happens, nothing more than that. Basically, you're talking about how much GB of your mobile phone, how much mobile camera size, but why the reason behind it. So basically, if you start looking at the ads of some good product companies like Apple or BlackBerry, and even they'll talk about this design decisions rather than the product answer. So how many GB it does or how much this thing is that. So try to understand the design value there. I'm trying to ask, clear your mind or, kind of synchronize your mind to mind expectations basically in terms of designs, explaining your design jury in terms of your design solutions, not in terms of just what you did in terms of physicality, in terms of why you did exactly and what made you think to do it, that what made you do it. So going forward, good buildings don't just happen, and it is through this process and recording the data and evaluating the data, you will be able to do a good building. And obviously, many people are involved in getting a good building right. It is just not one person, but since here it is you. So we're going to come to the topic architectural programming, a primer to design process, kind of initiating the design process or this design thinking that you question. We all know design is a problem solving exercise, but so what is this programming does is something that is going to make you seek to know the problem first of all. Many of the people, majority of the people, in a sense, 70% of the people answered yes for the last question, and 25% people have said no to the last question. So that kind of tells you. So if your people are asking you what is your architecture goal, it is because you didn't find the problem yet. You didn't thought of the problem yet. You always looking at the solution and you're like, oh, it's a good solution, so let's start with the project. So you didn't actually find the architectural problem yet. So programming is a problem seeking exercise and design is a problem solving exercise. So first you have to identify the problem, then you have to solve the problem. When I pause, that means you have to read from the screen and start believing in it. So that's what somebody believes in. So next, program is analysis and design is synthesis. When I say analysis, it's basically we break the entire project into smaller and smaller and smaller parts and start looking at each other one by one and analyze each and everything one by one separately, then combine. Then slowly, everything comes together and forms the final design solution. That is a synthesis of the project. So that's as simple as that. So you don't look at your project on a bigger scale when you start approaching the project at this stage. You start breaking it into smallest possible parts and looking at solving it, looking at that small part, solving it. And slowly it goes to the bigger process of combining together and finding a optimum design solution for the project that given. I'm not saying my Dex design will be round or I want to provide an open plan is a wrong design approach. It is just that it doesn't have logic or analysis written anywhere. It is just your intuition, good intuition and good taste acting on it and helping you to come to this conclusion. Many times possible. I would not say that, but I would suggest if you do the same thing, get the same result with a logic or analysis, it will be a much better design solution. It will not be a premature as just this one. Still around, it will still be an open plan, but it will be much more mature solution than a premature solution without any logic or analysis. This is something that I really want to change in every single mind of yours. If you don't do this, limitations are important, very, very important. Something that is wrong is very important, and something that is a problem that is important for us. Because if you call yourself as a designer, design is a problem solving process. So if there is no problem, what are you even doing? Why are you even going there in that particular project? If everything is already known to you, if everything is very clear to you. if the all thing is everything is already typical right now, approach right now. So now coming to the what the book Problem Seeking by William Penna talks about. He talks about very quickly simple concepts, simple approach to this understanding programming. Conceptual level. Not don't take it as a literal process level. We will come to the second part where I'll give you some tools and techniques and approaches, which is nothing new, but saying that it is not new, but we expect that from you, but maybe it could be new also. Maybe they're the first time looking at things this way, possible. Anyways, coming back to this particular part A, which is basic conceptual approach towards this. He talks about 5 programming principles. Start from establishing goals, collect and analyze facts, uncover and test concepts, determine needs, state issues. We'll come to this in detail in a minute. So to this, there is other component, which is called design determinants. We have 4 components there, which is function, form, economy, and time. Considering this an economic project, majority of the economy or time part is reduced, is kind of removed for our better understanding. But if you really want to go forward, I mean, we'll share the required data for that part also. Just for the presentation's sake, I have removed those 2 parts. Not that they are not important or unnecessary. So let's just get into the design determinant, which we already know about. So let's understand what exactly it talks about when he says function as a design determinant or form as a design determinant. So there is how the connection is there. Let's start with function, form. What does he mean by function is what is going to happen in the building. People, activities, and relationship between people and people, people and activities, and activities and activities. That is what is function is all about. These are the 3 keywords that you have to remember whenever you talk about function: people, activities, relationships. Form, what is there now and what will be there. It starts from site, not just building form he talks about. He talks from the site, environment, and the quality of space that you would like to create. What will be there. So as simple as that, he defines function, he defines form. So let's talk about the major programming principles. So these are nothing principles, these are actually steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, which need to be applied individually to each one of these design determinants. So starting from establishing goals, understand what is that. What does the client or the project want to achieve and why? You know, we kind of have a qualitative approach, like why are we even doing this? But not just in terms of overall thing, both in terms of function, separate statement, in terms of form, separate statement. Then we start collecting and analyzing facts. What do we know? What is given? Which is very quantitative approach, straightforward. But again, coming back to both for in terms of form, in terms of function. I hope you still remember how I define or how this book defines what is function and what is form. You have to collect and analyze facts in terms of that. Then uncover and test concepts. Remember, these concepts are not the concepts that you usually talk about. These are something called as programmatic concepts, basically abstract ideas in terms of, okay, there is an office, there is a staff, should I segregate them or should I put them together? So that kind of a concept, very abstract concepts. Should I divide them, put it in hierarchy, or should I put them all in equal position? That's a programmatic concept. If you want to refer to many other concepts that is written in this book, please refer to the reference file I shared already in Google Drive, reference number 1. To understand, he mentions 25 concepts in programmatic understanding. If you think it isn't something new, I don't understand what he's talking about. In other words, what he's talking about is nothing but what if you have read in your first year form space order, 3rd chapter, that is order. If you know that order, you'll understand these concepts very quickly. Determining needs, how much space, what level of quality. We should quickly understand that in terms of function and in terms of form, not together, separately, individually. And finally, what are the significant conditions affecting the design? So once you go from step 1 all the way till step 4, not necessary you have to do it exactly 1, 2, 3, 4. You can go 4, 3, 2, 1, or anyways, you always end with issues. If you do it sincerely, all these steps, understood in terms of form, you will find some issues. You will find in terms of function, you will find some issues. And that becomes your justification of your design. So what are the general directions a design tool should take? You will have a directions. So if you still feel this is, even though I just put it out very clearly and say very simply, if you still, okay, I'm not able to understand what sir is talking about. So we're going to quickly have an example. So this is what a matrix is all about. So on the left side, you'll have the determinants, function, form. Function is people, activities, and relationships, and form. You're going to, we have on the right to top one, we're going to, on the rows, each columns will have each of the steps, goals, facts, concepts, needs, problem. We have to end to problem. We have to finally end with the statement of issues. So what we start creating these keywords. Okay, what are the goals that I would like to achieve? Okay, I want to achieve maximum efficiency in terms of number. If that is because of people, I want to have maximum efficiency. Or in terms of site, I want to have environmental response. So you slowly, then you understand for that particular goal, you need to have data. So you'll identify the facts. From those facts, you identify some issues or approaches. You'll try out all the approaches and you start putting the needs. Finally, you come with the problem. And from here, you're going to take your design. So this is a quick matrix and still has a problem. I'll tell you, the problem is you should know the result, right? The problem, the last part that you want to see, what is the issue that I should write? I'll give you an example. You can have many more examples in reference 3 that is attached in your Google Classroom. This is a quick community college, urban community college. Basically, imagine a set of community college which works in the evenings only, not in the mornings. People go for work and they come back to college to get on the education that they would like to improve themselves. So that kind of a building uses program is like that. In terms of function, so from that is a final issue that they problem or issue or a direction that they got. Please read this. I'm not going to read it out loud one by one. Please read it. If anybody can say next, I'll go to the next one. So I hope you understand these are the programmatic decisions made by understanding and analyzing the data, understanding the needs in terms of function, and a possible outlook for the design to start happening is created. You say this is very clear, very simple. Maybe the physical, careful consideration should be given to orientation and the circular system. I know this. Why should I do all this work? I already mentioned in the first case, why should you write it down? Because you might have intuitively come to this decision, but not through data. Once you come through data from a proper analysis, then you will be much more confident in your design explanation or justification. That is the only reason I would stress on programming anytime rather than any other. There is no magic in there that will make you design something better than what you already could do. But it's a good justification. You'll come with a very valid justification. Let's look in terms of economy, which is not important as a style, but let's just start with that. We can actually, many people actually talk about low-cost housing or low-cost projects. So this is economy could be important objective in their brief or synopsis. So yes, you have considered this. This is something you already know it. I'm not saying this is nothing that is not new. It is just happening till now very haphazardly because it's a beautiful project what you already proposed and very aspiring for you, and you are alone working in this, and you are working completely start to end completely on you. So writing this data will simplify many things. That is the only request I'm saying. Not thinking in their head always. The solutions, the issues that are identified are not something that are new. It is simple solutions, simple identifications. And the last one is time. Convertibility and negotiability. So convertibility, these kind of abstract words are called programmatic ideas or programmatic concepts. These are not design. How do you do convertibility of the classroom design or planning is completely up to you, and you will have different approaches for that. So convertibility becomes a programmatic concept. So basically this will result in a schematic design, which is also expected in the review too. So as I said, the entire idea of this entire book actually talks about is you'll have lots of data, make sure you synthesize, you just abstract it to the basic essence of it. So that is the last. Last two statements for you to read before we go on to some of the tools and techniques of how to achieve this. Very important one, this one is so part B of the lecture. So this is not exactly a new pre-design process. This is already there, been there. It is just got a new name and came to us with a small, in terms of a small publication uh, very recently by Naresh Sasar, Introduction to Pre-Design. So most of the works that we do under this are very clear and and we do that, we start with site study and analysis, architectural program, schedule and finances. Schedule and finance is again removed because of, obviously it's because of academic project. So I hope you have done site array analysis clearly. Now we are going to second stage. So whatever information that's going to go from here is going to be mostly based on this book. And this particular document is also shared with you in your Google Classroom. So basically they talk about three things: collect, analyze, decide. Very quickly, we already know all these things. This is something that is not different in terms of any design process. Collect, analyze, and decide. So yes, you have done data collection, and the problem is you didn't. How sincerely are you documenting your data collection? How sincerely is the question. If you underline, bold, italic, sincere word, you have collected lots and lots of data. How sincerely are you documenting? That will be the question. And if you listen to the following slides and the book, if you can read the book sincerely, again sincerely, you will be able to solve that very quickly. Data collection. What data collection you did? You did a background research, you did compile literature is something that we are not interested, so I'll just remove that for a second. Then we have client interviews or understanding users or case studies and standards. This is the data collection you have done. But how did you document it? You document it as, this is my background research, this is my client interviews, this is my user studies, this is my case study, this is my reference standards. That is not the way you document. You document under these headings. We'll go through one by one, these headings, right? And remember, this documentation process is not a linear process. You don't start from top and you end at last. You might jump one step back and forward again and again as when you get a better idea towards the project. I will take a pause here. Just want to get a heads up from you guys. All good? Any correction should I make in my, am I going too fast, too slow, not able to understand? Is it not clear till now? Any suggestions quickly?
Good, sir.
All good. Thank you very much. So we go for it. So remember it, this documentation process is not a linear process. So you have to keep understanding, data start piling up. You have to keep understanding. You have to go back and forth to finally come to a design criteria. The first one is goals and objectives project description. This is something that you have done in the first time when you start talking about your synopsis stage. Majorly the background study, research, or client interviews, or understanding basic cases, you're able to come to this decision. So I'll not focus on this at all right now. This is done and dusted a very long time ago. So starts with actual programming. So the first thing that you have to do is define users. Define users. That particular documentation should be done from the data collected from background research, client interviews, user studies, or case studies. How do you document this? You document in two ways. In step one, you start listing the entire set of users. Not only listing is going to make sense, you have to classify the users. How do you classify? For example, organizational hierarchy is one approach. That is, when you're talking about a big office, a corporate office situation, you're going to start with a top manager to the least service personnel that is working in the office. Then you can also start by classifying them in terms of activities. You can classify them in terms of the time period they work in the particular office. You can classify by their zone or departments that they actually work in. Their creative department, their art department, their accounts department. what, and so on. So how deeper you can classify this is going to make your document that much richer, and that much better you will be able to act on this in terms of your design solution. So not just a list of users, not just a list of users. The classification process, documenting the classification process is going to make your approach towards this design project smarter. Remember this. How do you want to do it? I have shared a particular file. I think I'll come to that reference number in a little bit. Next ones, you're going to start listing out functional spaces and their capacities. Capacities in the sense, how many people are going to use that particular functional space. So you're going to start by activity, function, number of occupants, how much quantity of occupants are we talking about, what is the quality of space that you're looking for, and the classification of space type. There are many classification of space types in terms of classification of space types in terms of again in terms of organization or in terms of administrative area or zone or time period and so on. So classification again comes back here, like what I mentioned in terms of users. Next, we have description of functional spaces. This is actually very difficult because the program that everybody has chosen is very huge, and writing space data sheets for each and every single functional space would be very difficult. But definitely you have to try this approach of creating space data sheets for at least the major activity spaces or functional spaces. Where do you get this data from? You get from your client interviews or understanding the user, and majorly from your case studies, and sometimes also from the standards also. What exactly the space data sheets converts of, it actually has a description of the space, what a space. The reference for this particular space data sheets is given in the design process reference number 5 in your classroom. The important thing I want to stop here and take a pause and tell you guys, I am here to just give you a way to go ahead. This is not first semester where we have to tell you exactly and how exactly you have to do it. How to do it, what is the approach you want to take to do it is completely up to you, and you are in an age and stage where you have to make sure that you have to have the freedom. So I'm not getting into detail of how do you do it. I'm just giving you a basic requirements in that if you describe these keywords, that will be enough for you to go forward. So, but if you still want to do the understanding of this, but go through all the references that I have given you. There are 5 references that I've added today. Make sure you go through all the references, read the document sincerely again. By end of today, you'll have a better understanding of what to do from tomorrow. I can guarantee you that. Follow the presentation, follow the references. By end of today, don't think I understood programming by end of presentation. You have to go through the references to actually do what exactly is written there and follow the process. So that from tomorrow, you'll be able to better understand your project that the way you never looked before. The last one is user function relationship matrix and function relationship matrix. As I told you, this is something that you've been doing, adjacency matrix or bubble diagrams. You start mentioning is it very critical relationship, desirable relationship, neutral relationship, or undesirable, and so on. These are basically bubble diagrams in adjacency matrix. But if you start reading this book of design processes, I think you'll have a very good understanding of how to take advantage of both of these things, user function relationship matrix and user function to function relationship matrix. Important point to note is there are 2 types of bubble diagrams. One is out of context bubble diagram and in context bubble diagram. When I say out of context bubble diagram, we are talking about the relationship between 2 activity spaces in air. They have no context of site or the boundaries of a site or anything. And there is one more zoning diagram, which we call is something that is in context diagram. So these are one of the keywords I'm just trying to put it out, remind you again. So you don't directly start with zoning. You already did a zoning in terms of site features or site possibilities. But now that you're talking about functions, pure functions or classification of functions, you might do out of context bubble diagram first and then slowly come to the in context bubble diagram or zoning diagram. Very important thing is there is 4 words usually we start using: critical, desirable, neutral, undesirable. when you are putting these words, okay, the relationship between these two functions is very critical, or the relationship between these two zones, of, for example, dining and kitchen, these two are very critical. Or sometimes you'll say the bedroom and the living room is neutral or undesirable. Let's just say if this is the words that you're talking about. Don't just do it for us. Don't do it for submission. I remember, and I don't know you all, most of you all. Basically, what you do is you take two functions that is already listed out previously. You put out this interesting set of words with your common sense or intuition, and you start putting these words, and you don't care again ever about this particular diagram. Physically, they may look that it happened, but there is no design decision happen in this process. Remember, every single step discussed here is helping you to find a design approach, a justified design approach. So make sure you do this process. So what is a simple trick I can give you is when you talk about critical, okay, if there are two activities which are critical, what do I mean by it in terms of my design decision? Okay, I'll keep them close, which is very possible, which is very right, but you decided that. So if I say critical means if they should be very close to each other or next to each other, what is desirable means then? Okay, if you figure out that, then what is neutral means? What is undesirable means? How all these words are going to convert into your design solution? And we can't put these words ka ek hi design, one design solution every time. So it is up to you, your project, your approach that defines what exactly critical relationship between two functions mean. What exactly neutral relationship between two functions mean in your design solution. So have an idea, understand these simple words and out of context, in context clearly first. If I say something is out of context, I have to think out of context, not just say it out of context. If I say I have to talk about in context bubble diagram or zoning diagram, I have to really focus on contextual effects more than the actual bubble diagram of out of context. So figure it out very clearly. It is just the depth that you can go with this. And if you can go, your project will come out really wonderful and justified, in fact. The major important part, this is what usually comes up as documentation, nothing else that we talked till now might have come. This is the first thing that will come, that is area of the functions. Till now, area of the functions were not important. Just understanding of the function was important. So now the first quantitative, till now what we did is talk about qualitative approach of programming. Everything you talked about is qualitative approach. Finish the basic qualitative approach, then come to the quantitative approach. As I told you, people start by putting out areas and submitting that particular sheet on a piece of big paper or A1 size sheet, and that's the end of programming. Programming areas is very small thing. It's not one of the important parameters of it, but definitely an important in the part of the list. What you're going to do, we're going to start listing out areas per space and identifying total net area. Then we'll start identifying building efficiency ratio. Please look at the book by an introduction to pre-design to understand various building ratios, efficiency ratios provided for various projects like hospitals or museums and so on, or some different situations like you want to have a moderate planning or a very luxurious planning and so on. So what does this efficiency ratio talks about? Efficiency ratio talks about in our regular, let's take MSA as example. We talk about MSA example, and we list out every single function: classrooms, principal ma'am's cabin, faculty room, studios, lecture halls, bathrooms, toilets, everything. So when we start calculating all the entire net area for this particular result, considering the number of users, we'll come to one number. But considering the project budget and the luxurious or the approach or educational typology, we can say it will have, for this much of program, I will add 30% to this as my circulation area, or other words called as unassigned areas. What can happen in that area is unassigned. What can happen in a classroom is assigned. It's assigned function. There are some other parts in the entire campus which is not unassigned, which is completely, which is not known. It can be multiple uses will be there, flexible uses will be there, or for at this stage, because I didn't start my designing it, it is called as unassigned. Because putting it exactly to that limiting number, it will be very difficult to go for. So what number you choose there is very important. So adding these two numbers, you will get a gross area statement, which is your circulation including the previous one. How do you choose circulation? It is depend upon your typology. It depends upon your approach in terms of luxury or a moderate or a cost effective and so on. Not just one factor. Don't directly choose 30% is generally we use, right? That is first semester maybe or second year maybe, because you're still new to this approach. Now is the time to go deep into every single concept that you have learned in entire 4 years. If not now, when are you planning to go deeper into this? Don't look for assumptions even till now. Go a little deeper into, and 2 minutes, that's it. Go check out a billing efficiency ratio for typologies like your project, you will get the answer in 2 minutes, which is more accurate than a usual 30% for every single public building. The last statement I am focusing on, my personal advice to this particular efficiency ratio or functional areas is, there is one way of approach which is called numerical approach, where we start listing out, putting out all the numbers together, calculating, adding, multiplying everything. There is other approach which is completely graphical. This is where your creativity starts. I hope many people in this particular college, especially when they started doing their CV, they started explaining their software skills very graphically, which I told you, which if I remember Kriti Krishnan in this lecture of portfolio, she talked about it is very cliched and it is very old. Accepted, that is also accepted. But if you can think your Excel sheet of or your tabular column of areas in that approach of graphically representing it, I'll be the most happiest person here. It might be a little intimidating in the first to start on with, and there are beautiful examples out there. One of the examples that I can give you is, if I remember, there are many examples. One of the examples that I can remember is your seniors, Samiksha, yes, she has done a museum, a science city, in fact. Please do check out her program sheets. It was very interestingly done, and I really like the way the approach that she has taken. And if you can learn one other thing from her, it will be beautiful. And I think that particular project is also screening in our thesis series in YouTube, I think by next week or someday, I'm not sure. But you can still go ahead and check out her sheets now only, if you request her. So this is one of the important factors. I remember we had a bet with your seniors. I had a bet with your seniors that after telling all these things, and they said, no, sir, we will never showcase the Excel sheet again on the final sheet. So that was a bet by entire class that we will not do it. So if not, something will happen. But COVID happened, so nothing happened actually. But frankly speaking, they've lost the best. Majority of the class actually did Excel sheets. We started talking exactly 1 hour before, and talking to a laptop is very sad. Anyways, very difficult to now, because I'm not able to look at the expressions or anything, because there are some conversations here happen which are very personal, and some are talking to the topic. So anyways, numerical versus graphical. If you try graphical output for this particular sheet approach of functional areas and efficiency ratios, I'll be really happy to see that. And that is it. So if you can document all the data that you collected till now from various sources, various approaches in this format of start to finish, and every time you finish one, you know what is the design criteria that you're acting on.